Okay, hello and welcome everyone. Welcome to JFD Traders Tea Time with me, Darius Anucauskas. Today's the 25th of September 2019, so welcome everyone. Welcome to this Wednesday's afternoon session where we're going to have a quick look at the markets, a few of the charts, the usual stuff. But before we do that, as always, let's quickly have a read through our risk disclaimer. So, the content we produce does not constitute investment advice or investment recommendation, should not be considered as such, and does not in any way constitute an invitation to acquire any financial instrument or product. As always, a few seconds for you to read the rest and we can continue. Okay, also before we jump into the charts, quick mentioning of our JFD YouTube channel here, to which you can always subscribe to in order not to miss any of our upcoming videos, and of course our JFD bank website, but specifically the research page here, which you can always check out on a daily basis, and I believe you can find a lot of useful stuff. So yep, guys, feel free to visit us here, and I hope you can, like I said, I hope you can enjoy it, and I hope you can find a lot of useful stuff. But right now, let's jump into the charts. Now, the first one I want to touch on here is the Nasdaq 100. Now, I haven't looked at this one for quite a while, and so I do apologize for the amount of lines, but the only thing is I just wanted to quickly run it by you guys and basically show you that still the index remains within this nice kind of a rising veg formation, or if you don't want to see it as a veg, basically it's still trading above this this kind of medium-term upside support line taken from the low of December 2018. So it continues to kind of respect that line. It did have a break here this morning. Looking at the cash index, it did have a drop, but the price kind of quickly got back towards the area where it closed. So basically, we will see a nice kind of opening price here around the yesterday's closing level, around there somewhere. We're still going to keep a close eye on this upside line, because if it continues to trade above this, then, well, we could see another push higher and potentially maybe leading this index towards some of these key areas of resistance. And of course, the first important one to watch, if let's say we see a nice opening price here today just above this upside line, if this index decides to travel back above the 7,770 zone. Now, this is where it could become interesting again for the buyers. We could see this one pushing to the upside. Initially, we'll target the 7,873, but then, of course, we'll aim for slightly higher levels, and one of the areas that we're going to be targeting will be this one right here, near the high of the 12th of September, or in other words, the highest point of September, and that's approximately around the 7,975 zone. If this upside line starts breaking, then of course we'll be very careful with the upside scenario, because if it suddenly starts dropping below the 200 EMA here on the 4-hour chart, then of course, yes, we could consider further declines. The only thing is, if just for that extra confirmation of the downside, ideally a drop below the 7,600 zone could do the trick here for the sellers, and we could see this one dropping towards the lows, maybe towards the lows of August here. So again, for now, keep your eyes on this upside line. Let's see how this is going to play out today. If it starts dropping below this upside line, then, well, consider a possible move towards the 200 EMA here on the 4-hour chart. But if that fails to withhold and a drop below the 7,645 level, if we see that, then yep, we could consider further declines, especially if it continues to slide below the 7,600 zone. So this is the highlighted zone here. Again, like I said, there are some obstacles underneath, so that's why we probably move slowly, step by step. Have a tight stop loss in place, just in case this suddenly reverses and pushes back to the upside. So keep your eyes on this one. But again, for now, guys, looking at this picture, it continues to trade above this upside line, this medium-term upside line. But can it continue doing that? let's see, because today, like I said, it's going to be trading very close to this upside line, and if there's not going to be a lot of buyers kicking in here, then we could potentially see another test of this upside line, and then we'll take it from there. If we get a nice break and a close below this upside line, then of course it increases the chances for a further drift south. Jumping into WTI oil. Now I looked at this one previously, and after kind of last week's push to the well, or should I say opening gap here to the upside, last week it declined and kind of ended up trading around this 58.80 zone. But what I was saying recently, basically, if it continues to trade below this 58.80 zone, then of course it increases the chances for further decline. Initially we will be targeting the 56.3840 zone, and you can see that the commodity managed to reach that level already, and it actually overshot it, and it's now aiming for this tentative upside support line taken from the low of the 3rd of September. So the big question here is, of course, will this upside line hold? Will it be able to maintain the price above it? If so, then we could see a nice reversal and maybe a nice rebound, a correction back to the upside, where we could maybe potentially target this little area right here. So basically something like this could be possible. And let me just quickly put an arrow here. So where we could see a rebound from this upside line and a move back up here to test the 57.3330 zone, marked by the low of the 23rd of September. So it could play out as a nice area of resistance. But if this upside line fails to withhold straight away and we see the price falling below the 55.60, or even better, if we see a daily close below this upside line and below this 55.60 zone, well, I mean, this is kind of increasing the chances for this one to drift lower, and we could see maybe a move initially. And let me just quickly put this arrow right here, guys. So initially, of course, we will target this little low, the low of the 12th of September, near the 54 area, and if that is seen as just a temporary obstacle, basically, then a break below it could send the price towards the 52.95 or around the 53 zone. So that's going to be our next target. But again, before we could consider these lower areas, we need to see a nice good close below the upside line, this tentative upside line, and below the 55.60 zone. So keep your eyes on this one. If it continues to trade above this upside line, then we could see a bit of a correction here to the upside, and then we'll take it from there, see how it's going to perform then. Jumping into a few pairs now, a few interesting ones. So now the USDJPY here. So of course, from after its reversal here on the 18th of September, it started drifting lower. The only thing is that it kind of is trading below this little tentative downside resistance line. Now, let me just quickly put this one on the chart. So it continues to trade below that. Now the big question here is, can it hold again, or will it break this time? So of course, for now we're going to stay put, just continue observing this one, and we don't really act on these situations because it's very close, it's very tight, because in a way it has almost like 50-50 chance here to break higher as well. But the only thing is that how we're going to look at this is we're going to probably take a very careful and cautious approach. So in a way, if we see this downside line holding, and if we see the rate reversing back to the downside and falling below the 200 EMA on the 4-hour chart, now this is where we will consider a possible slide towards the 106.93 zone, which is the low of the 24th of September. But if that fails to withhold, now a break below this level right here, the 106.93, would confirm a forthcoming lower low, and we could target lower areas. Now, in terms of lower areas, and let me just quickly put this one on the chart. So in terms of lower areas, initially this is going to be our target around the 106.57, but if that fails to withhold, then the next potential area of support could be seen around here, guys. So let me just quickly put this one on the chart. There we go, and that's around the 106.32. Now this is going to be our kind of short-term target, but again, before we could examine around these two levels, we need to see a drop below the initially, of course, below the 200 EMA here on the 4-hour chart, but for those who are more on the cautious side, a drop below this area right here at 106.93, this could do the trick for the sellers, and we could see this one drifting further down. But again, that's all in the scenario if we see a downside, this downside line holding again. But if it breaks and if we see the rate climbing higher here, moving above all of its EMAs here on the 4-hour chart, the more important level to watch is going to be around the 107.80 zone, because that's basically the high of the 24th of September, which was yesterday. And if we see a nice good push above that level, above the 107.83, now this is where we will aim for the next potential target, and that's going to be and let me just quickly put this one on the chart. And this is going to be, we're going to aim for these little highs that we saw here on the 18th of September, and those are around the 108.47, 48 zone. So for now, guys, long story short, basically, in order for us to kind of examine a further directional move, we need a break through one of these levels. In terms of the downside here, we'll start looking at lower levels if we see a drop back below the 200 EMA on the 4-hour chart. But just to get slightly more comfortable with lower levels, we need to see a drop below the 106.93. So keep your eyes on this one. AUDJPY. So this one is, of course, you can see that if the dollar is quite on the stronger side today, and the yen is on the weaker. But here you can see that the yen is kind of has the upper hand for now against its Australian counterpart. The only thing is that we need to see a nice good clear drop below the 72.59 level. I talked about this one previously in one of my videos, and only then we will consider further declines. So for now, you can see that the pair is flirting with this level. If we see a close at least of a 4-hour candle, this could at least maybe help us support the downside scenario. But even then, we're going to be very careful, because it might have a false breakout, especially on the daily chart, and we could see this one reversing back to the upside. So for now, if we see a break below this, then yep, it's good news for the sellers. If we see a close of a 4-hour candle below this, then yes, of course, this supports the downside idea. The only thing is that still have a tight stop loss here in place, because just in case this suddenly reverses back to the upside, and we've seen many times something like that happening, where we saw a close of a 4-hour candle below this, but then let's say the next 4-hour candle is kind of reversing sharply to the upside and pushing higher. But again, like I said, for now, that's the game plan for this one, for this pair. This is the downside scenario. In terms of the upside scenario, we're going to be very careful and very cautious, and we're going to wait for a push above the 73.10, because this way the pair would climb back above the 200 EMA here on the 4-hour chart, and we could then maybe target these slightly higher levels. So for now, that's the situation. We are more bearish than bullish on this one, but we're waiting for that confirmation. GBPUSD, something that sold off heavily today. And of course, it was trading before. I talked about this one recently, basically, and it was trading above this. Let me just quickly double check. And I think I've spoke about this yesterday in my Trader's Tea Time. That's correct. So basically, I was talking about this upside line here, and what I was saying, if this upside line fails, then we could see a drift lower. We could see a drift lower towards this 1.2380 zone, so where the pair is currently sitting at. So the only thing is that ideally we would like to see a further decline, a further drop below the 1.23 zone in order to consider further declines, because for now, like I said, yes, it did have a nice move. Of course, we are more bearish than bullish on this one. The only thing is that it's currently sitting at a very interesting area of support here, so which previously acted as resistance, and this time could kind of play its good role of support. So keep your eyes on this one. If it continues to drift further down, we do have the 200 EMA not far from there, and that's approximately around the 1.2345 zone. So Again, that's why, guys, for now, keep your eyes on the 1.2380. Of course, we are more bearish than bullish on this one, given that it already broke this tentative upside line. And yep, we will for now aim for lower areas. If it drops below the 200 EMA, the next potential target for us is around the 1.2310 zone. So keep your eyes on this one. In terms of the upside, we would need to see this one drifting back to the upside here and kind of pushing back above this upside line. The only thing is that also what I wanted to kind of show you guys is if we, for example, ignore this upside line, let's say, then if we take it something here, then we are seeing a nice kind of head and shoulders pattern here, especially clearly visible on the 4-hour chart. So we already kind of broke the neckline, and even this way, yep, it broke it. It traveled lower, so it has a good chance for this to drift further down. But again, like I said, these are the two levels that we're going to be initially targeting. And let me just quickly rearrange the arrow here. As I said, the 200 EMA and the 1.2310 zone. But if it suddenly travels back above its neckline, then, well, I mean, probably the downside could be off the table again, and we could see this one drifting back to the upside. So keep your eyes on this one. And the last pair for this session is going to be euro dollar. So this one is still a tricky one. I talked about this one this morning. And basically, I was telling you to keep an eye on this little range that the pair is stuck in. We need to see a nice, good, clear, not only a break, but also ideally maybe a close, at least of a 4-hour candle, because currently, I mean, you can see that we already had a drop below this 1.0983, but the pair quickly got back above it. So for now, it's like I said, it's very tricky. It's very, of course, on one hand, it is still looking quite bearish, especially if it's going to drop again below the 1.0983. This is when we will start looking at lower levels again. Initially, we'll target this little low of the 23rd of September, and that's around the 1.0964. But if that fails to withhold, then yep, the main target for us is still the current lowest point of September, and that's around the 1.0924. But again, we need to see that nice, good, clear, and confident drop below the 1.0983 zone. As for now, as you can see, that it's not happening. It doesn't really want to drift lower again so for now, that's why we're going to remain probably somewhat more neutral on this one than anything else. And in terms of the upside here, if it pushes back above the 1.1024 zone, yes, we will aim for a little bit higher levels, but only up until this downside line here, taken from the high of June, and then we'll take it from there. See what he wants to do. If he wants to break this, then it's good news for the buyers, but if it stays below this again, then, well, I mean, we could see maybe another leg of selling. But let's not over speculate too much for now. The big question here is, can it stay above the 1.0983? If it cannot, then we could see further declines here. So keep your eyes on this one. Okay, guys, I really hope you found it useful. Thank you very much for sticking around and watching it till the end. If you want to join me tomorrow morning, as always, in my Traders Espresso, and that's 6 o'clock GMT time. For now, I hope you have a beautiful evening, guys, and I'll see you tomorrow. Thank you very much, and bye-bye.